All right.
We're on.
So today we're tying a dark olive caddis, dark olive antron caddis. Some of you guys mentioned that you want to learn flies that I use on the stream. A lot of the flies I use on the stream are pretty simple ties. I like to, kind of a guide tie because I go through a lot of them. But they're really effective. And this is one that's really great for black stoneflies, granums, olive caddis. It fits even, it's a dark olive body, but I've done well during a tan caddis hatch. So it's a antron body CDC winged fly, really basic. And I predominantly tie these on a 16. And I also tie 18s. It works great on 18s and smaller. 14s, it's not as good. Elk hair caddis seem to be a better choice. Let me get my thread straightened out here. So all of the flies I tie, this pattern, I use camel thread. Brown, mostly because it's the thorax color. It matches pretty much the thorax color. If it's, usually you look at a caddis, you'll see some with like black legs, but like even the granums have brown legs, brown thorax. They'll have kind of a brownish colored thorax. And even if they did have black, this still works great. Like I said, I use dark olive on the tan caddis hatch. So I found this out accidentally when I ran out of black ones fishing the granums. I put the dark olive one on and it just seemed to work better. And so now I don't even, I do tie, I keep a couple black ones in case the fish are real picky, but my box is loaded with these. And I haven't tied one in a while because I've got so many. But I'm a little out of practice, but here we go. I start, a hook's gap length away from the eye, or a hook eye's length away from the eye. Give yourself, and I do a little coating of thread. Get it back to where I want to start the body. Okay. Okay. So here's the thing. If you order dark olive or any color online, you really never know what you're going to get. Dye lots change from the manufacturers. Here, this dark olive here is the same company. This one's, where? Here we go. This one is actually more green. This is darker, more like peacock. It's the one that's kind of peacock looking. Is the one, yes sir. Is that my jacket? How's that? Better contrast? Okay. Well, I thought I was going to do a dark fly. It would show up better with the gray. So I'm going to start. It's pure antron. The body's pure antron dubbing. And I pull some. Now we're going to probably give this fly a couple of coats because you don't want to put this on real thick because it just it gets unmanageable. Antron dubbing's not the easiest to spin and stay organized on your thread. So and it is coarse, and you're not going to have a really smooth, tight body with this, no matter how hard you try, because it is gnarly and coarse. But you do the best you can. So, kind of working back to about the thickness. Now, I don't know how this is looking, but my eyes are shut. I could barely see this, what I'm doing right here. So I'm kind of going more by feel than sight. Okay, now I'm stopping I've got about 80% of the body dubbed. I'm going to cut off that excess. I actually might be able to see it better. It doesn't look too bad. Okay. Sure that's not going to show up better? What do you guys like better? You like the gray?
Yeah. There it is, all right.
Okay. I thought so. Okay, so you're about 75, 80% you're going to dub. Now we're going to use a CDC. If you can find bulk packages of CDC, go that way. Don't buy the little package or the select stuff because you don't get a lot of feathers. You know, with these bulk packages, this is from Deddy's, they're in the Catskills. You used to be able to get this anywhere. That's really hard to find, but he has it. 3 gram package, one per, it'll last you a lifetime. But you get a lot of scrap too. So what you're going to do next is put on your wing. So the CDC I like is got kind of square tips. You know, there's different types. You don't want the puffs. There's some CDC kind of looks like a Christmas tree. It's pointed and it displays. That's good for if you're going to wrap it for legs. You know, wrap around the fly for legs. But you want nice square tips. You take 2 and you even the tips. Now, if the fly has a little bit of, or the feather has a little bit of a curvature to it, curve it up. Otherwise, it's going to hang off the back. So I get these lined up, get 2 nice feathers, and I don't extend the wing very far past the body. I mean, just maybe a tad past the hook bend. And I'll do a couple of wraps. And now that's a little long, so I'm going to retract right about there. Make sure all the CDC's on top. Now, if it's still sparse, here's where you can kind of pick up some of these little dinks. These are smaller than dinkats. And I will not go back to the, tip to tip. I'll move this forward halfway, and that'll kind of fill in the front part of the fly. And again, I'm just going to secure that with a few wraps, and I'm done. Now, this is going to be tough to see on the water, especially if you're in like a shady area. So what I use is, I can't find this anymore, this Antron body wool. I mean, you get like a mile of it on a card. It's nice and straight though. This is what there's all kinds of yarns out there. If you use like a crinkly yarn, what happens is it starts to form a ball. It crinkles into a ball after you catch a few fish, like it shrinks. I would suggest like Z-Lawn. If you can't find, some of the stuff on a spool you get is nice, but it's a little fine. It's a little finer than this coarser Antron body wool. Again, one card will last you a lifetime. I've taught a couple of classes using this same card. So what I do here is I take a piece about yay, but I'm going to thin this out. I'm going to thin this out, probably not even half. It's going to be like a dozen fibers. And we're going to lay this on top the wing. And this isn't for the fish. This is for you. This is for you to see. This helps you see the fly. And you wouldn't think it made that much of a difference. Believe me, it does. This makes that wing looking down at it really pop. And I put this in just short of the wing tips. Again, we're going to do a couple of wraps right there. That's it. Good. Now, I forgot the brown dubbing. We need brown dubbing. Mike, can you get some medium brown rabbit? It'll be fine.
You use other color besides?
Yes, I use tan. I've done it in cream. Oh, the wing? Yes. No, use the white. It's the white. Oh, I have tried other colors. And if you're on dark, you know, when the water, when it's looking dark, you know, it's flat, it's dark, you know, you're seeing like green reflection coming from the trees on the other bank. You know, you really need something that's going to, you know, take any kind of light and reflect it back to you. You know, the pink, I've tried it. This white works. So what I use on, you're going to use a dry desiccant on this fly, like frog's fanny. Duck's ass, it's fumed hydrophobic silica. And you dust this, and it just makes that fly pop, and it floats it well. Frog's fanny's a little expensive. I've got like a bag, and I refill my bottles. I use a turkey baster. If you want to go that way, so Cabot Industries it was an additive for the airline industry, epoxy paint additive. Then they realized, like, all of a sudden they were like selling like small quantities to fly fishermen. So they actually now sell a small, you can buy it like a gallon. Best to go to let somebody else buy the gallon, split it up into smaller bags and go on eBay and buy it, and then refill your own bottles if you have the bottles. You know, it's a little bottle brush. You brush it on, you work it in, and it floats great. When you catch a fish, so it's CDC, right? So you hit a fish, the fly's wet, the wings are all matted. I carry a little pinned on piece of chamois I use. I sponge it out, kind of blow it out, and then reapply. You don't want to reapply the floating while it's wet. Or if you got shake and float, you know, shake that up, try to get as much moisture out of it. And it, you know, these guys will float all day. Sometimes if the fishing's really good and I've caught a lot of fish, I'll pull that one off and tie a new one and let that other one air dry. And I'll rotate between the two flies. But, you know, I do all that with this because it works. It's good fly. You know, I want to keep fishing it because I'm catching fish. So there's that. What I'm doing next is I'm adding a thorax color is what I'm going to do here next. And I forgot to bring the brown dubbing.
Now, while we wait on him, why don't you explain to the newer people what CDC is and why we use it?
Okay, that's good. So CDC is French, cul de canard, which is rump of the duck or ass of the duck. And they're a oil clean feather at the rump of the duck. Very few feathers there, so it's like, you know, you get very few. But it's an oil gland feather, but it doesn't mean that this has oil in it. It just, you know, holds oil. There we go.
Take your pick.
Cool.
That's all I can find.
Brown, here we go. So let's start tan, cinnamon. Okay, because we have those, what I want is I'm going to exaggerate the thorax color. I do that. Now I actually the first ones I tied actually were to imitate a certain fly, and they were like olive, but they had these light colored legs, and I actually used Hendrickson pink as the thorax. It worked great. So by superstition, I tie a bunch on Henderson pink, but they work with other colors. This is what? We got brown, we got this ginger, there's those, you might want to pass those out.
You got possum.
No, you've got that whole, those shoe boxes full of, you know, so I'm going to use a little more contrast because, so you guys can see it. So again, we're going to take a wisp. You see, I mean, it's small, right? And I'm going to take that little wisp and break it into a little wispette. New tying turn. We don't need much. So, actually, maybe it was too much. I pulled out, and I'm going to, there we go. And you see, it's thin. So that little bit, I probably still have too much because we only need, we're going to hold the swing together so it doesn't move around the hook. And I'm going to coat this thorax area, build it up a little bit. Then I'm going to pull all this back. And I'm going to jam thread up underneath these wing butts. And I'm pretty much done. Now, we can go different ways. Some people like to clip this in and form a head. But my thinking is, so we do an elk hair caddis and we cut the head on an elk hair caddis. There it is. That's great. We need to just let those guys take a pinch or whatever. Like I said, you really don't need much, or pass it around as you tie. Here, I got to clip this little butt out of the way. Where was I? Okay. So you could form a nice, neat little head on, brown head on this. But with an elk hair caddis, what do we do with the butts? We clip the butts over the eye, and they form like a triangular shape, which from below gives you that caddis head silhouette. So keep that in mind. That's why I'm not cutting these butts. I'm just going to leave them out like this. And it's, like I said, I tie these in bulk. Cut the thread. So now I take these, all this leftover wing material, and I clip right over the eye, which leaves a little fat head on there. And that's it. And once you get going on these, I mean, you could, 5 minutes, body, wing, thorax, and they're done. This is probably my most productive fly on Oil Creek in size 16. The granums, it works great on the granums. It works great on the black stonefly. With the black stoneflies, I'll really put a lot of floating on there because I like to give it a little skid or just a subtle movements. You don't want, that as you move it, the fly sinks. You want it, the stoneflies are skittering on top of the water, not in the film or underneath. I will also grease my tippet, so when I do, if your leader's sinking and you pull, your fly's going to follow. So I want everything floating on that for stoneflies. Here's another thing. Sometimes the fish are taking emergers. Sometimes they want them on top. So if they're really on emergers, what I'll do with this fly is I hold the body and I only dust the wing. Then I fish it and the body breaks the surface tension and hangs below. So I have it that way. I fished it as a soft hackle. Just no floating on it. Just a real slow, controlled swing. It's not like a stiff, which works great when they're taking emergers too. Just
Spring and summer fly?
this is going to work. So March stonefly, 16 black. This is why 16 black stoneflies. Then following those into mid-April are the granums, they're 16. Then you get a little past the granums into May, you get the 16 olive caddis. That covers that. Then you also get like some other dark caddis, you know. You go to Oil Creek, there's, you know, it's like every year I think I see a new caddis that I've never seen before, you know. But me and Mike fishing that one time, we had the black thorax and these dirty cream, but they were almost all, so black, that's why I told Mike, I said, just use the black one because the abdomens were so tiny, it was all thorax, it was all black thorax, so.
And this last winter, Oil Creek had tons of black stones coming off all winter. All winter long, you could go out there and see black stones coming up end of December, all of January, all of February. Almost any time I went out there, I could find black stone.
So I fished Caldwell Creek, and before the 16 blacks come out, they get a little 18 black stonefly. So I do tie this in 18. You know, a little less wing, you know, I might use one piece and a little dink, whatever, you know, on an 18, but pretty much the same color, and it's worked great there. You know, one time I was there, I had that 16, I was getting rejections, and that's when I noticed the 18s. And I had a really good day on that, but again, the same pattern. Now, on Oil Creek, we got the bright green caddis. They're an 18. So I tie the same pattern, except the body is caddis green superfine. I can't get too coarse of a body. I got a small hook gaps, and they are pretty slender. So I use caddis green superfine on that. But again, CDC, a little bit, you know, you know, the bigger your wing. If you want to tie these on 14, go ahead, but you know, you're going to use more of this. I will say, when you put that on and you throw that out, that white Antron yarn on top makes a big difference, because I've tied it without and fished it, and it makes a big difference. Why you wouldn't think it would, but it does. You know.
What's the difference between seeing the fly and not seeing it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So CDC is great. It's getting, you know, it's starting to get a little easier to find. I don't buy the expensive, the Select or anything like that. It's just not economical. You know, you can get some really nice stuff dyed and all that. I mean, this wing, tan caddis, the wings are more tan. I have tan CDC at home. You know, I hardly ever use it. This works just as well. You know, the wing's above the water, so it's not like the fish are keyed on the wing color anyway. You know, they're looking from below. They're looking more at a silhouette and a body color. So, I mean, with the granums, this is much lighter than a granum. Well, we've got different species of granums on Oil Creek. So, you know, the wings all are a little different shade-wise, but this is good. I mean, you blow that out, you float that. Again, it floats like a cork. My body's a little lump. That's not too bad. I could have put more thorax on there by just wrapping it down over the wing, you know, as I go back, but my eyes are just really off. So I was just kind of guessing, but if you want to pass this around.
Okay, and before we wrap up the video, does anybody have any other questions about this pattern, design, the history of it, or anything else, the material used? Any questions?
No.